it's now 3:30 and time for the Redevelopment Agency of Murray City for Tuesday, February 15th, 2022. And wow, we have quite a few people in our chambers. Welcome. This is awesome. Let's see. RDA members present are all but Gary, and I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. Herekasi. Thank you. Anyway, hopefully Gary will be joining us. So the first item on our agenda is approval of the January 4th, 2022 RDA meeting minutes. And are there any changes, any questions about the minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move we approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next is citizen comments. And all comments are limited to 3 minutes or less, and email comments will be read into the meeting record. So, do we have any citizen comments at this time? Okay, it's my understanding that there was an email or a, yeah.
So we did receive an email comment just this afternoon from Jess Gonzalez. It says, hello, I would like to make a public comment on the RDA item discussing market research and data analytics to survey public opinion. I am personally delighted to see that the city wants to pursue these efforts, especially since the public input process felt undermined with proposed downtown developments. It is critical that our public institutions take more intentional efforts to meet people where they're at and engage with them directly in these pursuits. Telephone and online surveys are still the gold standard in survey methods, but I would like the city to employ more direct tactics, such as conducting surveys at local grocery stores, places of worship, recreational areas, or using digital social media marketing methods to gather input. If the city is truly committed to hearing from as many citizens as possible, they should employ these different tactics that are inclusive to everyone, regardless of the language they speak, their age, or abilities. It shows that the city is committed to serving and hearing from as many people as possible while building trust in institutions among our citizenry, especially in those who are not engaged or feel disillusioned by local government. Thank you for your time. Jessica Gonzalez, Murray, Utah.
All right, thank you. Great comment. All right, we'll continue on if I see no comments from anyone here. The third is the redevelopment project areas finance report. Brenda Moore. There you are. Thanks, Brenda.
I remember to put my little thing in my machine so I can
Good job.
the mouse. Yeah, so I can stand. So you said you wanted a discussion of where we are on the finances for the RDA, kind of what's going on over there.
Yes. Thank you.
So let's start. We have 6 RDA or redevelopment areas within the city, 5 that are active in collecting taxes, and then you have the ore sampling site. And I'm just going to go through them one at a time and kind of explain where they are all at. They are all within the same RDA fund in our accounting system, but I do track how much of each of that fund belongs to each one of the areas and where the expenses are going. So the first one is the ore sampling site. This one's the simplest one. It's the one where you have now approved where the Jesse Knight Legacy Center is, where I think the easiest way to say it is the graffiti building over off of. So eventually, if and when they get the DEQ approval to clean up that site, that will become an office building. And you have agreed to reimburse the Legacy Center up to $2.5 million of TIF money And right now, there is no tax increment collected because the project has not been done. And once it's done, we'll activate the collection area and then we'll start collecting taxes and then we will start reimbursing the Jesse Knight group.
Do we know how long that will be? Is there any idea?
I have no idea how his project is going. That's not my area. I just watch the finances, and so far, nothing is happening from
Okay.
my side.
Great.
And we all know the DEQ, it could take a while.
Yeah.
So Cherry Street, this is, I think, back in the day, they extended a road through that area, and they've got some development warehouses and stuff that went on. It's over 48th and that area in the west somewhere. So this one, the collection expires in 2023. The revenue we got in 2021 was 88,087. So that was what they call the tax increment. This particular contract had no low income housing requirements because it was just to get that industrial area to develop, put the road through, get more businesses over there. At least that's what I have gleaned. Last year, so the RDA director, half of the ComDev director's expenses goes to the RDA fund. Last year, this area paid $11,000 of those expenses. And it's currently transferring money to the general fund to repay for infrastructure, and the general fund did before it started collecting taxes. So, and that's $25,000 a year. There's an amortization schedule somewhere. I'm still trying to locate that. And the area balance at the end of 2021 was $181,000. So what that means is they have $181,000 they could use to do further projects within that area if they wanted to.
But they only have until 2023 to extend that?
2023 is when the tax collection ends. So not this calendar year, but next calendar year is the last one that it will get tax collection. And then after that, I checked with Zion's Finance, and they say there is nothing in the law that says that the RDA area immediately just shuts down. They have some time. There is no limit really of when they have to spend the money. If you decide to shut it down, the remaining balance goes back to the taxing entities based on the percentage that they sent it in. So the county would get some, the mosquito abatement would get some, everybody would get a little bit.
Cool. Yeah.
If you decided to do that and not spend the money on something in the area. So the smelter site, if anybody wants to know, that's the hospital site in various areas around there. That one expires in 2023 also. That's the last time we will collect taxes on there. Last year we collected $1,042,000. We reimbursed the school district 12% of that, which last year was $127,000. And RDAs are all designed by contract. So we made a contract with the school district when they decided to do this area that we would reimburse them a portion instead of keeping all of the tax that they had sent to us. There's a 20% low-income housing requirement in this one. So 20% of the revenue that they bring in after the school district redistribution has to be used for low-income housing. The administration fees are capped at 5%, which last year was $52,132. Currently, it transfers $265,000 a year to the general fund to repay for the infrastructure costs. I believe we put in a road and all kinds of infrastructure in there to get that site to be developable and have the nice, I think it's Cottonwood, whatever that road is.
So Brenda, you say administration fees. Where does that go?
It goes back to the general fund to pay for half of the ComDev director and their assistant. It's Department 1301, basically. So ComDev and their assistant, half of their expenses. That's where it goes.
Okay, thank you.
Currently, we are having from the state legislature withhold some of our sales tax for low-income housing for the homeless shelters. Last year, that was $95,348. We can use the RDA low-income housing funds for that. The smelter site is paying that for us. The current balance of the low-income housing over there is $832,898, and the area balance is at $2.2 million. So that one is a pretty healthy fund balance, and at some point we will need to decide what to do with that low-income housing. East Vine, that's Wood Oak and Vine Street, over by the cemetery. That one, the collection expires in 2028. There's no low-income housing requirement for that one. The revenue last year was $56,906. They paid $11,809 for the admin fees. They transfer $10,000 to the general fund for infrastructure repayments, and the area balance is sitting at $90,109. So that's a little small area. I think that one is that's one of the smallest. It's 16 acres. And I have a feeling they did intersection improvements, put in some roads, did some stuff over there to get that corner and some houses over there, and then at the county. But I'm not sure. That's just my guess because I wasn't here 20 years ago. Fire clay. This is... some of us are really like fire clay and some of us really hate fire clay. It depends on whether you live in an apartment or not. So this one expires in 2033. It does have a 20% low-income housing requirement. We're still working on whether some of the refunds we're giving to people qualify for that. I'm working on that one. The revenue last year is $1.776 million. The value of this area went up a lot once we put stuff there as opposed to vacant fields and rundown manufacturing or whatever was over there. We reimbursed the school district 12% of the revenue, so from this area they got $213,000. We have 4 reimbursement agreements. The remaining total balance of that is $8.8 million. And in fiscal 21, we paid them $775,000. Right now is transferring funds to wastewater and power for the infrastructure that they put over there to get that area to redevelop. It has a low-income housing balance of $607,000, and the area balance is 1.3, and that balance is growing, and it will grow every year. As we start paying these guys off, it may decrease. Central Business District, this is the one that everybody is here to listen to. Its collection expires in 2034, although due to the pandemic, you agreed to, we may possibly extend it for 2 years. If something happens over there, that might be recommended to pay back TIF money if we need that. It has a 20% low-income housing requirement. The revenue in 2021 was $1.3 million over there. Administration fees are capped at 4%. So last year it was $53,000. They reimbursed the school district $400,000, which and it's a flat $400,000, which last year was 29.8% of the revenue. I think when this was originally designed, $400,000, if that area had developed in a timely manner, which it has not, $400,000 might be a steal right now with the value that could have increased. But because it hasn't redeveloped, $400,000 makes it 30% of the revenue that we take in. It was a gamble on whoever wrote the contract. And it's taken long enough to redevelop over there that we lost that one so far. If we put something up, we may gain again. there's no private reimbursement agreements right now, so there are no TIF agreements over there. Let's see. Right now, it's paying the 2016 bond for property acquisition, and that's for all the property that it's sitting, the City Hall property, adjacent property that's going to become roads, and then there's some lots over there that the RDA owns, plus there's Block 1. So it's paying for that. The general fund is transferring $327,000 a year currently to pay the RDA back for the City Hall property. So the RDA, we owe, let's see, let's get this right. The RDA bought all the City Hall property. The city is now paying them back for that property, and it is now in the city's name. The area balance is at a negative $1,535,000. The low-income housing is a positive because it's 20% no matter what. It's got to be low-income housing, so it's at 885. So the net is a negative balance of $649,000. So essentially, they're borrowing money from the other RDA areas right now, which is okay. Continuing as we are now, they'll be positive in 3.5 years. They are very land rich and cash poor. They own the property we're sitting on here. They own Block 1. So they've got a lot of land, but that means they bought it. They have no cash. So, and that's, here's kind of a summary of it. Total, you probably can't read a whole bunch of this, but that's all of the expenses. Total, the fund balance is like $4.6 million in the RDA fund, if you combine all of those areas together. And we have about $2.3 million we have in low-income housing funds as of the end of fiscal year 21. I don't have 22 yet because they haven't sent us all our money yet, so I don't know what that is.
Questions for Brenda? Yes, Doug. What would you like to tell us?
So when we met with the chair and vice chair of the RDA, Diane and Rosalba, we felt like it would be good for you to, as the RDA board to understand, number one, how many RDA areas we have, which Brenda did a great job in covering. We have 6 areas, but really more importantly, to help you understand that what the financial condition of these RDA areas are, because as we talk about some of the agenda items tonight, there's going to be ideas presented to you that will require funds, and you need to understand where, is there money available? And if I could just summarize real briefly what Brenda just said, is that there is money in all of the RDA areas that can be spent in the RDA areas, with the exception of the Central Business District, which has a lot of land, as Brenda said, but doesn't have a lot of money. And so as we talk about developing the historic district, Block 1, Central Business District, whatever name it goes by, you have to understand that there's not a lot of money up front to be able to build things, but because there's a lot of vacant land, there's a potential to reimburse somebody who is willing to develop in that area through the TIF funding. So I think that's just a key point that I want to emphasize as we talk about some of these items tonight. With the exception of the low-income housing money, which can be pooled and be spent anywhere in the city on any variety of low to moderate income housing projects, the other funds that are collected should be spent within the area in which they are collected. And that's why, the smelter site, for example, has quite a bit of money in it, over $2 million, as Brenda just pointed out. But we can't spend that money that's in the smelter site in the central business district because it was collected and intended to be spent inside of the smelter area. So anyway, just wanted to make that point.
Great, that's helpful. I think that, good, that'll help us going forward. Thanks, Doug. Okay,
So do you have any other questions?
I have a question, and I just lost it here. Had to do with. So, can you explain the TIF funding? That's what it was. If we extend for another 2 years, and a building doesn't get up for another year or two, let's say.
So
How would we be able to reimburse them if the RDA would then be?
that is, if a building gets up, say, which this will never happen because government doesn't work this fast. Say tomorrow, we have a contract. Building goes up, takes 2 years, would be in 2024, right? We would then collect TIF money from 2024 to 2034 or 36, depending on what we decided. And if it was a small enough amount, we wouldn't care and we would let the TIF funding stop at 2034. If it's a large amount that we have to contribute, then we would probably extend to 2026. What that does, though, is the city, any increase in property value, once you start collecting any increase in property value in that area and property tax collected goes to the RDA and not to the city or the school district or all the other taxing entities. So what that does is it lowers the amount that the city will receive of the increase in the property value also. So that would be a decision. If we don't have any projects going or any TIF money we have to go, as a finance director, I'd say, no, we are not going to extend this because the city could use the money and the school district could use their money and it's just collecting money. But that's why we would extend it or not.
And then the 2.3 million for low-income housing, we can ultimately tell a developer or anyone wanting to build in the RDA that they can use that funding, right?
You could write a contract that would say, and GL would have to correct me, that would say for this amount of time, you have to have this number of apartments at this percent of market or whatever the agreement is. But they're going to want money for that because that's going to mean that they can't rent those apartments for market. Or they can't sell that property if it's a townhome and they have to sell it at a lower price to qualify for low income.
Okay, great. Thank you.
yes, Doug, have something to add.
So RDAs are very hard to understand, and I know if you'll indulge me for a minute, just so that I can maybe put this down to as simple a terms as possible so that the audience who's here kind of understands how RDA works. I think Brenda described it very well, but I just want to use an example. So right now, the historic downtown area west of State Street has a lot of vacant land or empty buildings. And the city is not collecting right now a lot of property tax in that area. And so years ago, 3 decades ago, the city decided, let's create a redevelopment area in downtown so that if somebody does come in and build something new, we can capture that increased value of property and put it into the RDA. But nothing's happened in 3 decades, right? So 3 decades, there's been a little bit of money collected in the RDA, and that helps pay some of these administrative expenses and studies and things like that, but there just hasn't been a lot of money there. And that's why it doesn't have money now, is because all the money that has been collected has primarily been used to purchase the land in the RDA area that the city owns. So if somebody were to come in, using Brenda's example, if somebody were to come in and build $100 million worth of building improvements in the RDA area, all of a sudden now that the tax value that is going to be collected has gone up significantly. You know, several $million now every year that would come, but it would come to the RDA, right? The RDA now has this money. And so you as a board, as an RDA board, now has to make decisions about what you're going to do with all that money, because you could be receiving $1 million, $2 million a year in this tax increment funding, they call it TIF money, that you have to decide what you do. Well, the purpose of RDAs, and the reason that the state legislature allows cities to create them, is to help develop areas that are typically challenged with unusual expenses, such as environmental contamination, infrastructure improvements, water lines, sewer lines, power lines. And in some cases, they can, and in every case now, it has to be used to promote low-income housing. And I know that a lot of people say, why would Murray City want to, promote low-income housing? Well, there's a lot of good reasons, but one of the reasons is we have to do it because we've created this redevelopment area and the state has said you have to spend these funds in order to provide housing for low to moderate income individuals. So that's why when we talk about development in the downtown, future development in the downtown in Block 1 and other surrounding areas that you're going to hear about tonight, that's why it's important that's what goes there, right? Because what goes there is what helps the RDA collect this money. If you put a government building in an RDA like City Hall, right? There's no tax money that's going to come off of a government building. It should be a private facility that generates property tax money. And so that's really kind of the ultimate goal of RDAs, and why, as we talk about the downtown, why it's important for you to understand that there is money that is going to be available in the future as this downtown RDA does development.
I know it's so complicated, and later we'll talk about doing some training because RDA is, it's not easy to understand, and it's so important to our development. So
Well, and the reason that like the school district will agree to this is because they see that after 20 years, if you put something there, 20 years from now, we play the long game with the city, and with the 20 years later, after all the increments been done and it stops collecting like Cherry Street is, that money is going to go to the school district and to the city, which it wouldn't have had if we hadn't done or redeveloped it or kind of pushed the redevelopment, which is why taxing agencies will agree to do an RDA.
right.
They're playing the long game.
Yep. Okay. Are we good? No other questions? For now, thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
All right, we're at number 4, which is presentation of conceptual development ideas for the Central Business District, CBD, Urban Renewal Area. Susan Wright, welcome.
I'm so happy to be here today. I think this is kind of a new beginning for Murray. We have a new mayor, new council members, we have a new city hall going up, and I have a new plan. So
Before you get started, can you speak a little bit closer to the microphone? It's kind of hard to hear you. Thank you.
Okay. And I don't really know all of you council people. I used to know everybody on the council, but some of you are new, and so I used to dream of running for council, but I never had any time. But anyway, today I'm going to have to tell you a little bit about me, because if I don't know you, you probably don't know me either. So me and my husband, Bill, we came to Murray in 1979. We opened over on 4800 South and 23 East. We opened a dancewear store, catering mostly to girls. And we built it in the middle of 5 bars. And that was kind of crazy. But there was a building going up across the street that I thought, well, let's see what that is. And we called, and it was the new fire station. So we felt really good about being there. Yes, I'm talking about the fire station they just tore down because it was old. So it tells you how long we've been there. But by being there, we discovered the mansion. And my husband was in love with that building, as decrepit as it was, and we bought it. And we turned it into a reception center. And we put our heart and soul into that building, built a ballroom on it, and made it so nice. And then we realized that we were really in a blighted area. And so to insulate that building, we ended up buying almost the whole block. We bought 10 other buildings. Some of these buildings had boarded up storefronts. One didn't have a roof, and the other one had a caved-in roof. But we made 6 successful businesses out of all those buildings. And we brought thousands of people downtown to Murray. You remember Field of Dreams, Build It and They Will Come? We took the old warehouse, which was the old Grand Central building, and we turned it into a 12,000 square foot ballroom. Now that seems really crazy, but it thrived. We had 12,000 people on our mailing list, and our biggest mailer was Bountiful, and the second one was Provo. People came to do ballroom dancing. So between having 2 reception centers, the chapel and the mansion, the ballet center and the art center, we brought thousands of people to that area. Everybody is very familiar with that area. I was being very concerned about this area, the way it's become. We sold half our property to Murray City thinking we were getting a performing arts center, and that didn't pan out. And so our wonderful mayor, Ted Iyer, asked if Bill and I would stay there 2 more years till they found a developer. The buildings were getting more run down because we weren't going to put money into them. They weren't ours. And we stayed 6 more years. And then finally, in 2019, after running dances for 33 years and receptions for 22 years, we decided that it was time for us to retire. So we left. And Ted Iyer's nightmare came true. It's a blighted, run-down area. And that was he was afraid of. That's why he wanted us to stay in those buildings. So we're very invested in this area. It's very personal to us. We care what goes down here. I've been really caring lately because we've had developers contact us wanting to buy our property. Now, our property is just south of Block 1. It goes from State down to Poplar. We still have the ballet center and the costume shop there. And developers have wanted our property. Well, we don't want to see an apartment building on that property, so we're not interested. But me and Bill aren't going to be here forever. And we have a son that lives in North Carolina, and when we're gone, he's going to come here and get the most money he can for that property and leave. He's not invested in Murray at all. So while we're still breathing, I thought maybe we ought to get a plan of what to really do with that property. So me and my friend Dwight and Bill, we've come up with a plan that we think is really wonderful. You know, I came to a meeting over here in October, and I'd had this plan for a year. And I was listening to one person after another come up the microphone and say what they wanted in that area. And I was just sitting back there going, you're talking to the choir here. I already have all this planned. So I jumped up, the devil made me do it, and I said, I have a plan. I wanted to say I have a dream, but somebody already said that. So I said, I have a plan. And so now all these people are here today because they want to see the plan. So if I can get Amber to start, we'll kind of go by piece. Oh, and if you wouldn't mind not asking questions until I get through with this, because I don't know if I can spit this out in 30 minutes, so. Gonna go bigger. This is our first concept. We think that we should build on the west side of State Street a beautiful event center, and we should relocate the Murray marquee from across the street to this theater. The marquee on the Murray Theater, I think, is what makes it historic, but it's an old building, and if anybody knows old buildings, it's me and Bill. So we propose they build an event center here, and it will be state-of-the-art. It will have an indoor and outdoor theater. It will have retractable chairs that can move back, and it can become a convention center. Also, it can be an event center where people of Murray can rent it for weddings, workshops, class reunions. It'll be tall enough that it can fly scenery. It'll be a real theater. The other side will have a loading dock, and it'll have a beautiful lobby that can also be rented. This will be an income-producing building in every sense of the way. Okay, on the next slide. Oh, and in that building also, when we were doing dances, we had huge turnouts for Valentine's Ball, which was yesterday, and New Year's Eve. We packed people in because people are looking for a nice, formal, beautiful place they can go dancing. Okay, on this next slide, this shows a concept of the west side of the event center, and you'll see that there's going to be glass doors that could open out, so we have an outdoor theater. And also that can be the loading dock for the inside theater. This theater can use the same curtains, the same floor, the same lights, the same sound, everything, but be indoor, outdoor, I think is pretty unique. Now you see all that open ground there, which is now just a parking lot. We would like to suggest that all that was just flat cement with no curbs or gutters, just flat all the way around, so it can be a festival square where you can have wonderful festivals. But there can be little stations where we can have Wi-Fi, water, and electricity. I was just at the Italian festival this summer, and I was sitting there thinking we could do this so much better than they're doing it at Gateway. They have all these ups and downs, people tripping. They have generators with smelly fumes and loud. But they had people lined up for blocks in these nice little tents that they had, and besides that, we have all these chairs and tents that we can rent right over here at Diamond Rental, which is just around the corner from here. And people can have all kinds of festivals down there. I think we have a little place that we call the Commons, we'll show in a little while, where we can put structures up for every holiday. And by the way, this festival grounds has to be beautifully landscaped and beautifully lit so it can be seen from State, 48th, Vine, and Hanauer. A place that people really want to be. And the concrete there can be stamped in pretty colors, just look like Disneyland down there. We could have a Christmas tree as tall as the mansion, bring in a portable ice skating rink, and you'd have Rockefeller Center in the small. And guess what street it's on? 5th Avenue. And they're just, we have a 3-on-3 basketball tournament out there for kids and bring a jazz player. It's just so many things you could do. We're so close to City Hall by blocking off Hanauer and diverting the traffic to Box Elder. You could spill all this festival over to the new city and county building, the city building, so that we can utilize that space also. Okay, our next one. This is an overlay of that property, just kind of showing you the buildings and the space. And that green is actually what it is, green space, where we have a beautiful walking promenade where we close off Poplar Street on both ends and people can just walk into there. But we still have a street on 5th Avenue where people can drive and if they need to bring things. we want to have those beautiful little historic homes moved next to the chapel. And incidentally, me and Bill moved that chapel in 1986. It was on 4800 South and Poplar Street, and it was going to be demolished, and we moved it down there across from the mansion to use it for weddings also. So the Townsend house and the Caruth house could actually be moved across the street rather than being demolished with Block 1. And they could be anything, but I think beautiful little restaurants with a festival plaza, like sandwich shops and pizza place, just little nice quaint restaurants. And I suggest we keep T. Rose Diner there because she's been there for a long time and she's a good anchor right there. Okay, now the mansion, I know that building after living there for 34 years. It would make a 5-star restaurant like Lakai or the Five Alls, something like that. If you want to go to a fabulous place to eat, these are the places. There are very few of them. And still, it could have weddings with the ballroom and the gazebo and all the green space. All of this is all this property could be rented. The promenade could be rented, the festival space can be rented, the event center can be rented. It's all income producing property. And so now, let's see, you're asking yourself, where are people going to park? I'm glad you asked. Because there's a lot of parking around here on this side of the state. There's, the other side of the ballet center has 40 stalls. At night or on weekends, the bank has stalls. There's businesses west of there that has also many parking stalls. And even City Hall has parking. But even the mayor told me that the parking in the new city center is not going to be, at the City Hall, is not going to be adequate. It needs a parking garage. So I think we have property already. I've seen the plot plan of parking north of the mansion, which shows ground parking, and that would be kind of a waste of space. It needs to have a parking structure put there for 200 cars. And not just this plaza could use it, but also people across the street, Desert Star. And these people, me and Bill have been the only ones that had parking in downtown, so we know how everybody is always looking for parking. This parking structure, they tend to be ugly, but ours won't be. Ours will be pretty. It'll be a big cement building, but on the side of the faces, our promenade, we could have either in cement or paintings, pictures of the smokestacks, the old Murray First Ward, and any other historic building that's gone. So it would definitely be a historic walking promenade. Let me see. You have 2 anchors in that area. The Ballet Center has been in business for 51 years, and Days Music has been in business for 75 years, and they're not going anywhere, either one of them. So they're good anchors. Even the Eagle Lodge, it's been there forever. I think it was there when I moved in. So what I'm trying to tell you is that this property, if it's developed nicely like this, it can determine what goes west of there. There's still vacant land west of there. There's even could determine what goes east of there. Across State Street, I was just looking, the old fire station over there is kind of sandwiched in with kind of an ugly strip mall. If that was taken down, you could have a mini version of this right across the street on the east side. You've got the hotel and you've got restaurants. And hopefully Block 1, we don't know what will go into there. But I actually have an idea for Block 1 also, but we won't be here long enough to talk about that. But some further time I could give you, I have a good suggestion for that area. But who's to say that this plaza couldn't spill over into a little bit of Block 1 to make it just a little bit bigger? I mean, anything is possible. I think that this could be a diamond for downtown Murray. It would be something like a cross between the Galvin Center and Gardner Village. Only all these houses were already here. They weren't just brought in. And I think it's a place that if it was lit property. I think it's a gathering place. And incidentally, it's within walking distance of tracks. And also there's parking at tracks on the weekend. But what I think would be fun is if Murray had a shuttle bus, because the garage under the mansion, the ballroom, it'll fit a bus because I know how high it is. So you could have a colorful bus that would shuttle people back and forth to the festival and encourage people to take tracks out to this area. I think it would be magnificent. Well, I think I've said enough about this subject, but I would like to have my partner in crime, Dwight Rimash, he'd like to say a few words. And at the end of our presentation, we have some handouts with all these pictures that we'd be glad to give to people in the audience. So thank you so much for your time. Dwight? Oh, I did forget to show you this. I have a little picture of this too, just to kind of show you what it would look like to have all those homes together.
My part on the program is really, really fast. Okay. Hazel and I have lived in Murray since 1977. We love this city. A little bit about me. From 1990 to 2005, I was employed by the state of Utah, the Utah Division of Travel Development. I managed international contracts for tourism development, and along with colleagues there at the Travel Council, we called it the Travel Council, we promoted Utah destinations in the United States, these destinations to tour operator professionals in the United States, Canada, Mexico, Western Europe, and selected markets around the world. Destinations, or the destinations in Utah, are a big driver of economic successes in Utah. And as a group, we were continually working with individuals, business leaders, city councils, county groups, state associations, to assess the strength of our destinations. The process of assessment is really quite simple, straightforward, and is based on a common sense concept. We would evaluate and study factors such as the area's assets, architecture, buildings, space, scale, past histories, accessibility, even successes and near successes. And all of this was to identify a new or further refine an existing destination project. We would then wash the destination product through measurable filters, such as current visitation, market potentials, professional evaluations, case studies, and budget ranges. And this would help us to further understand the viability of the product. This presentation represents that process. I think it's a very exciting product and a very exciting plan. The scale fits and it fulfills Murray City's, the Murray City Center District, and we've got a lot of acronyms floating around here, vision. And I'd like to conclude by quoting that vision off of the website. The Murray City Center District is envisioned as a commercial, civic, and cultural center of the community. The zoning regulations and proposed design guidelines of Murray City Center District are intended to promote opportunities for compact, pedestrian-oriented, sustainable redevelopment in the downtown area. The Murray City Center District should be a true downtown, a rich and lively mixed-use center with design elements that focus on the pedestrian experience and the streetscape. It should provide opportunities for residential development, neighborhood-oriented businesses, restaurants, and civic and cultural spaces. This was the methodology that Susan and I used, excuse me, to come up with this particular plan and destination product.
I did forget to tell you one thing. This doesn't have to be built by Murray City. It could be built by the county. It could be built by a private developer. The only problem is you'll have the same thing with the mansion. You need to insulate the mansion and the city's offices. So it would be best if Murray City were to build it, because there would be a lot of revenue to be gained down there, than to have someone else. We ran into former Mayor Snar, and he looked at this, and he would like to say something today.
Well, it's been a while since I stood at this podium, and I come with some trepidation in the sense that I promised myself solemnly after I decided it was time to give up the post, even though I ran again, because people wanted me to get downtown developed, like Doug Hill said, to generate income. That's what you need to do with those areas that are downtrodden. And the RDA has such great potential down there, but it hasn't been tapped. You know, the Snards settled in Murray in 1860. We moved here 43 years ago, and I told my wife we're going to move to Murray someday, even though she lived up in the Olympus Cove, because they can pronounce our last name correctly. Instead of Snare, they'll say Snar. And because, you know, my ancestors were educators down here. You know, I love the Murray Theater. I have to tell you, when we moved here, we take our kids over there all the time. The movies were very reasonably priced. They had good food to eat at a fair price. We'd park across the street, and my whole issue on the Murray Theater has been parking. We'd park across the street at Quality Oil and where there's now the Lost Creek Apartments. And so that takes you back quite a while. You know, I look at historic buildings, and I do have some trepidation. I told my brother we restored it's almost a 100-year-old house, and I said, hey, he's my partner in my industrial properties, and I said, we can do this for $35,000. He says, go ahead and try. Well, $65,000 later, we had it done. We ran into a lot of problems and a lot of things we hadn't foreseen. And that's what you find with historical structures. I will tell you, I have some friends. The Oaklands are really good friends of mine. They did the hospital. They did majority of the hospital. Randy and his son, and then one of my relatives married into the family, is an executive with them now. But they undertook the rebuilding of West High School because the individuals down there said, we want to preserve and save West High School. He said, I will never do another project like that in my life. The reason being was they ran into so many complications to meet code. The person that tried to restore and do something with the current Murray City Theater, he lost hundreds of thousands of dollars and walked away. I mean, he just said, it's not going to work. One of the major issues, again, was parking was an issue. But Randy said, never again am I going to touch a project like this. And that's the same with my friends that rebuilt the Perry Hotel. Said it wasn't worth it. Now, I did recoup the money on that $65,000, I will be honest, because I had tenants that wanted to be there. I got my money back in 3 years in rent. The city invested because I love history, but I want to have somebody in the building that's going to make it work on a regular, continuous basis. We donated, I believe, Doug, it was over $60,000. Is my mind correct? Today, Murray Music. It's about $60,000 because I said, here's the longest continuous business in Murray City history. And I loved Arlette Day and her sons who run it. But I remember when the architect came in and spoke to us and said, we ran into so many challenges because they have to meet the building codes. And as they were trying to remodel it, they found all these complications and problems with the structure of the building to do it and finish it correctly. And fortunately, I had a good counsel, and we said, okay, we'll ante up the money and pay the difference because they were way over budget. The same thing happened to Mike Todd with the Desert Star Playhouse. Way over budget. We had a few come to Jesus meetings actually in my office. because of the fact, he said, your code enforcement people over here, the building code enforcement people are telling me you've got to meet all these requirements if you're going to redo this building and have it meet the current building standards. Fortunately, we found that there was a way we could help him, and it was because of the Irish apartments that sit above the Desert Star. We were able to get, I believe again, Doug can correct me, I think it was over $140,000 in money to help restore those apartments above the Desert Star. Now, a lot of you weren't here to witness all these things. It was pretty challenging, but I learned some lessons. I learned some lessons from Spence Eccles. My company did the work for all the First Securities, a lot of the Zions banks throughout Utah, Idaho, and even into Wyoming. And for the Skaggs family, owned American Stores. And for the D's restaurant chain. And I learned something from all these individuals because they'd been there, done that. And they taught me valuable lessons about how to invest money and invest it wisely. Salt Lake City School District said never again, even though they had a lot of pressure, a tremendous amount of pressure from residents up where East High School was to save it and preserve it. The school board, the superintendent said, no way we're ever going to do this again. This project is going to be a brand new school because we're going to build state-of-the-art, make it as green as possible, and make this a first-class school that will last for another 50 or 60 years. Spence Eccles, who ironically parks by me where I park up at the University of Utah to take care of the athletic fields, he said, you know why I invested in the Eccles Theater? They came to me about the Utah Theater. Let's restore it. Let's save it. He said, no, I wanted to leave a legacy for generations to come to say, here's a world-class, first-class performing arts facility, and we're going to do it and do it right and build in the latest features. What Susan and Bill are proposing, and Dwight, who's been my neighbor, we moved in 1979 here, so we're pretty close. He got here a little before me.
Mayor,
Yes.
you have about 4 minutes.
Well, I'll cut it off then here real quick. Anyway, sorry, I am long-winded. You know, I got that from staying up here before. But that venue that they're proposing has so many capabilities, and it will be state-of-the-art. And I really am asking all of you to, if you will, put the pause button right now and say, what can we do? I worry structurally about the integrity of the roof over there. You know, adobe brick, I learned so much when we had to take the chimneys down. Was it painful for me? Absolutely. My ancestors built the chimneys, you know, but nobody was going to build on the site as long as they stayed there. I couldn't get anybody. I've been worried about downtown because a lot of people came to me and said, you got the vision, Mayor, go back and make this happen. And I had people on the line to do it, but nevertheless, it didn't work out quite like I'd hoped. But that's okay. Life is good. But put the pause button, if you will, and look at what you can do with what's available from Fifth Avenue going down to Dave Murray Music. It has so much potential to bring people here and generate income. And that's what you want. And right now, that area, unfortunately, from an RDA perspective, is not generating income. Everybody says, well, why does the hospital generate income? I said, well, you got a 9-story medical office tower, and that is taxable. Whereas the rest of the site, yes, is a nonprofit. So and I got the Costco to come to Murray, so I wouldn't have to drive out to Midvale to buy my hot dogs and drinks for my employees and myself. That was really the reason why. I said, hey, you guys come out here. And I went and saw him, and Jeff Warner said, I'll send my real estate people down here. And Boyer Company said, well, out of nowhere, the Costco people showed up. I said, yeah, it's a selfish reason. Okay, anyway, so if you put the pause button on this and look at this, unbelievable potential. I can just see the events being hosted, and it's a 24, it's not a 24/7, but unless, you know, the bars are open. Okay. Anyway, it's basically a facility that can operate year-round. Outdoor venues in the summer, as well as inside, and then inside during the winter. It's got so much potential, and it will bring life to downtown historic Murray. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
So, again, in meeting with the chair and the vice chair, prior to this meeting, we felt like the city owed the rights, the ability to pitch this idea. There are no action items, no decisions that need to be made on this presentation tonight. In fact, right now you probably have more questions than there are answers, but we just
Right.
Councilmember Turner and Councilmember Dominguez felt like this was something that would be good for you to consider. It's one, of course, of many options, and this will have to be evaluated and discussed in the future. But that's the primary purpose of this being on the agenda tonight.
Yes. Thank you, Doug. We wanted to make sure that we had the information, and this is really lovely, and thank you so much for your creativity and for caring enough about Murray to bring this to us. So we really appreciate it. Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
Yes. All right. We will continue on. And let's see, we have next on the agenda is the discussion of current and future partnership with NeighborWorks Salt Lake. Allison?
So I know you all know Allison Trees. She's our local Murray representative here for NeighborWorks, and she's going to talk about NeighborWorks tonight. But the reason that this is on the agenda is that Murray City has had an agreement with NeighborWorks the last many years. I don't know how many years. Allison can probably talk about that, to provide housing assistance to low to moderate income individuals within the city. And so the redevelopment agency, as well as the city, entered into an agreement that we would work with them to provide them funds, RDA funds, these low-income housing funds that we've talked about, to help distribute those funds to individuals that qualify for various programs. The agreement has expired, and so as Allison talks about what they've been doing for the city, at the end of her presentation, I'd like you to have a discussion amongst yourselves as to whether or not you want to continue to enter into a contract with NeighborWorks to continue to provide these services. And so this is just an informal, yes, please go ahead and move forward. If that is what you decide to do, then we will work with the attorney's office and with NeighborWorks to draft an agreement, and we'll bring it back in a future meeting. If you decide, no, this is not a direction that we want to go, we'd like to know that so that we also can work with NeighborWorks and others on how we want to move forward. So with that, let me just have Allison come forward.
When is the contract up? What is the...
The contract has already expired.
Oh, it's
So,
already
Yeah, we are without a contract right now.
Oh. Gotcha. Thank you, Allison, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I love meeting with you people. I think you do great work in the city, and we love getting together. For the rest of everybody, my name is Allison Treese. I work for NeighborWorks Salt Lake, but I have a lot of connection and fond memories in Murray City. I grew up just about a half mile or a mile outside of the city limits, but this is where we came to shop and to go to the Murray Theater or the Vista Theater. I think it was the Vista back then, wasn't it? You probably remember, don't you, Susan? And the roller skating rink, which was before you bought it. Yeah, the ballet center. We'd go roller skating and across the street to Money's Ice Cream and get an ice cream out. My age is showing. I know that it's really showing now because she said they bought it 50 years ago, and that is true. And before that, it was the roller skating rink, and I did go there. It was a fun place. The T. Rose Diner is now where Money's Ice Cream was. I remember cruising the park on the weekends to see if all the boys were out. You know, we wanted to see what they were all up to. I remembered so many fond memories in Murray. We shopped at J.C. Penney's here on State Street. We did our, you know, we lived in Taylorsville, but we shopped and spent our money in Murray. It's a great place, and I'm really am pleased that I'm still involved in the Murray. My first real job was at Walker Bank, which is now Wells Fargo Bank. So it's a great place. I love Murray. So. But NeighborWorks, we've been around for 45 years. We started out in the Liberty Park area, and then we moved to the west side of Salt Lake City, and then we opened an office out here in Murray. But let me just kind of tell a lot of these people what our mission is, what our mission statement is for NeighborWorks. We build on the strengths of neighborhoods, creating opportunities through housing, resident leadership, and youth and economic development. We work in partnership with residents, government, and businesses to build and sustain neighborhoods of choice. So we want to build neighborhoods where people want to live, not because they have to live there because they can't afford anything else. We want to make these neighborhoods someplace where people are really working hard to get into. And we're really good at it. We've been doing it for a long time. At NeighborWorks, we have several different lines of business. We have a real estate development department, and we buy homes. We buy older, dilapidated homes. We fix them up, and we sell them and make them affordable and sell them to low to medium income households. We also do home improvement for people who are suffering with health and safety issues in their homes. We have our CB&O department, which is our community building and organizing. We have a great YouthWorks program. We work with at-risk youth. We bring them there after school. They come as an after-school program. We put them to work. We teach them how to work. We teach them, they do a little construction jobs and a few other things. We give them a little stipend. So we teach them how to use their money and how to spend their money and how to save their money. We also have an in-class day where we teach them how to adult, basically. We teach them how to write a resume, how to apply for a job. We take them when we buy them. We take them to the thrift store and help them buy some clothes that they can wear for a job interview. And then we hold mock interviews where we get a lot of volunteers, and we interview them as if we're interviewing them for a job, and then we give them some feedback. So we really mentor these kids, and we've had some great success with that over the years. In fact, one of the graduates from this course, he later became our chairman of the board of our board of directors. And he attributes the YouthWorks program to get him from going down this path into a different path. So we've been very successful with our YouthWorks organization. We also partnership with the University of Utah, and we have a professor that comes out, and we have what we call our West Side Leadership Institute. That's where we take residents can join this, take these classes, and learn how to take an idea or a project or something they want to do in their community, and how to work that project through to its fruition and help them make change in their community. And it's a great partnership with the university. We also have what we call PIHO and RIHO. You're thinking, what's that? PIHO is Paint Your Heart Out. We've been doing that for many, many years. We find people whose homes are in need of, the exterior is in need of painting. And we work with seniors, veterans, disabled, people that just cannot physically or financially paint their own home or hire someone to paint it. We do it once a year. We get volunteer groups together. Some of our partnering organizations, the banks we deal with, may form a group. We have other organizations that donate all the paint and supplies, and then we go out and paint these homes for free. And it's called Paint Your Heart Out, and it's a really great opportunity to reach out to the community and help some of these people that have really contributed over the years but just need a little help. And then we have RIHO, which is Rake Your Heart Out. We just started that a couple of years ago, and that's where we go out the Saturday before Thanksgiving, and we rake leaves for these same people, and we clean up their yards a little bit for them. So we really like some of these programs that we do. Then we have our home ownership services department, and I'm actually the lending manager of the organization. I also manage the Murray office. But in the lending and the home ownership department, we can provide, with the funding that we receive from Murray City, we can provide down payment assistance for people who are looking to buy a home in Murray, up to $20,000 or $25,000, depending on your what we call, well, 20,000, and you can get 25 if you're what we call a champion, which is fire, police, teachers, medical workers, and Murray City employees, veterans, military. If you're a champion, you can get $25,000. So we help them with, and they can use the money for down payment assistance and closing cost assistance. Gives them a little bit more buying power, helps them get into these home for these low to moderate income households. We can do 80-20 loans, which is a bank will finance 80% of the purchase of the home and we'll finance 20% of the purchase of the home. That way they don't have to have mortgage insurance. It helps them with a little bit more buying power there too. And then we can do home improvement loans, and we do below market rates. We always charge below market because we're pretty lucky. We don't have to borrow funds because we are so lucky to get funding from our different organizations and so forth. And we even have a program called our deferred payment, zero interest, zero payment home improvement loan. If you have a family, usually an elderly couple maybe that's in their home, they've lived in their whole life, they want to age in place, but the house is falling apart around them, they can't afford to fix it up. So we'll give them a loan, zero payment, zero interest. We'll go in and fix their home. We just put a lien on the house, and someday when they move out and sell the home, then they pay us back out of the equity. And of course, this home will sell for more money because it's been fixed up. We do some first mortgages, and we do some grants for health and safety issues as well. So what have we done in the last 45 years? I passed this out to the council members. This is just our annual report for last year, but in it has a section that says our impact since 1977. And over the years, we've done 173 new single-family homes with a total community investment of over $33 million. We've done 162 multifamily units with a community investment of about $18 million. 98 completed home rehabs for about almost $15 million is what we've community investment. And 791 first, second, and home improvement loans with a community investment of over $97,000. The YouthWorks, we've had over 3,000 graduates out of our YouthWorks program. And we painted over 751 homes in our Paint Your Heart Out. Rake Your Heart Out, we're just getting started. We've only done 23, but we're ready to do more. So those are some of the things that we can offer and that we have done over the years. So that's what we've done as an organization. So what have we done in Murray? So in Murray, Murray reached out to us about 12 years ago. So it was 12, Doug. 12 years ago, and asked us if we would come out to Murray and help them with some of their blighted properties and areas, because there was some neighborhoods that the houses were pretty run down. So we came out here, and we've been here for 12 years. We've done over 30 projects where we've bought older homes. Either some of them, unfortunately, we had to tear them down because they just couldn't be saved. But most of them we were able to just remodel and add on to them and then sell them to low to median income families. We've had some acquisition rehab, some home improvements, and new builds. So we've done a lot of that over the years. In just the last 2 years, or almost 2 years alone, we have provided over $300,000 in down payment assistance to low to median income families. That facilitated over $3.7 million in new home purchases. So we brought, we're able to bring some good families into Murray. We just concluded a home improvement loan for a couple who just really needed some emergency repairs done to their home. It was really struggling, and we just completed that. Over the years, we've done 10 of those Paint Your Heart Out homes, and just 2 or 3 of the Rake Your Heart Out, and those were just last year and the year before. So we've been doing a lot in Murray to try and help people. And one thing that's been really a bit of a challenge these last 2 or 3 years, as everyone knows, COVID hit. So we usually get out into the community and we try and do more community events, and that's been really hard to do this last couple of years. But last year we had our YouthWorks group go out to the Murray City Food Pantry, and they helped paint the kitchen. They donated and volunteered our time and painted the kitchen there. We had a gal reach out to us. I think someone at Murray City referred her to us. She was having problems with her water heater. We went out and just were able to fix that for her, and didn't spend any money doing it. It just needed some labor and some work, so that we didn't make any money on that. We just did that service for her. So those are the kind of things that we try and do and try and help the people in the neighborhoods. You can't talk about affordable housing without talking about the housing market a little bit. And everybody's going, oh my goodness, yes, we have to talk about that again. But the housing market's been really tough. The cost of housing they're at an all-time high right now, making it very difficult for us to purchase homes that we can approve for affordable housing. Low to median income families just can't afford the homes that are out there. The down payment assistance loans that we've done in the last 6 months to a year has been mostly condominiums that people have purchased. So they are still purchasing, but I'm sure they would prefer a single family home, but that's just really hard right now. The University of Utah Policy Institute report that came out in February of this year, it was written by James Woods, by the way, who is also on our board of directors with our organization. And a couple of things that was mentioned there is a housing shortage. And that's evident by the days on market. You put a house on the market and it's selling so quick. People are just snapping them up because there are just no homes out there. And the price increase, that's because there just isn't homes out there. And some more information I thought was very interesting. From 1991 to 2021, housing prices in Utah increased 600%, over 600%, compared to the U.S. at that same time of 246%. So that's a huge, huge difference. The last 5 years in Utah went up 84%, and the country was 51%. Just from the third quarter 2020 to the third quarter 2021, it went up 28%. The housing market went up 28% in just that 1 year, and the U.S. was 18%. So you can see Utah is a bit unique. The impact for the home buyers, the median home price in Salt Lake County in 2015 was $280,000, which gave you about a total payment of about $1,700 a month. And wouldn't you like to find that right now? I think we would. 2021, the cost of the median price home wasn't $280 anymore. It was $550,000. That's a house payment of over $3,000 a month. What low to median income households and families can afford that? What people that just aren't even low income can afford that? That's a big chunk of money. So what are we doing about it? Well, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So at NeighborWorks, we're trying to think outside the box. What else can we do? What are some of the things that we can do? And we've been real busy trying to come up with ideas. And one thing we're developing right now is a community land trust. And for those of you who don't know what that is if we have a property, we'll build a home on it. We'll sell the home, but not the dirt, not the property land itself. So the people, instead of buying this $500,000 or $450,000 home, they're only have to get a loan for maybe $300,000, and then they just lease the property for a very small monthly lease payment. So that way they can afford these homes. So we're thinking about doing that. We've got some properties in Salt Lake, and we even have a piece of property here in Murray we're thinking about doing that with. Another thing we're looking at too to create some affordable housing is to, I know that there was some talk about accessory dwelling units, and I know that's on the agenda tonight for your city council. There's some changes coming. I'm interested to see what comes of that. But an accessory dwelling unit is like building another house in your backyard, an apartment in your basement, an apartment above your garage. It's just another dwelling unit on your property. And that gives people a little bit of extra income that owns a home, but it also creates another affordable unit in Murray. So we're thinking about and looking into that, maybe financing and building those. And also other projects, maybe property that Murray has that needs to be developed. We had a great meeting with the mayor and some of his team a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about maybe partnering on some of those projects and developing properties that are either mixed use or mixed income or something, and working together with them. And we've even reached out to a partner already, and we're just talking to them and getting their thoughts to send another developer to see if we could partner together to maybe work on some of those projects a little bit. Let's see. And also because of this market being the way it is, I mean, it's kind of typical for someone when they're just getting started, they buy their starter home. They live in it for 7 or 8 years. Then they sell it and they go buy their forever home, or they, a little bit nicer, a little bit bigger. Well, people aren't really doing that as much because they just can't afford that. So they're fixing up the homes that they're in. So we are really getting out there and trying to promote home improvement loans to help people with these, these low to medium income families that are outgrowing their homes, to maybe add a room on the back or something to make them more fit for what they need. So we're kind of working on that and promoting that a little bit. We also work with the senior center. We've worked with them, and that's to help some of those seniors that are in those homes that are kind of falling apart around them, to try and help make their homes a little more healthy and safe for them to live in with home improvement loans or some of these deferred loans and payments. But NeighborWorks, we really want to continue working with Murray City. We feel it's important. We want to help bring good families into Murray. We want to help keep families in Murray that are here too. They'll help them fix up their homes so they'll stay here in Murray. We appreciate our relationship we've had with Murray City. We've enjoyed working with everyone here, and we just really hope to be able to continue working with Murray and really help develop and turn this community just into something even better. It's hard to improve on something so perfect, but we want to do our part to step up and try and help Murray City and bring these good families into Murray. When we talk about people here, low to median income households, they think, oh boy, that sounds like the really poor people. But let me just give you a few figures just so you kind of have an idea of what we're talking about. Do you know that the average median income household for a family of 4 in Salt Lake County is $92,900? So if a family of 4 makes less than that, they're considered a low to median income household. And the funding we receive from Murray City, we can go up to 120% of that figure. So for a family of 4, if they make less than $111,000, they would qualify for down payment assistance. And that's the household income. So it helps you realize that these low to median income households, they're teachers and they're policemen and they're firemen and they're healthcare workers and they're people that we want in Murray City. And we really need to step up and do what we can to help them. So thank you for letting me come today. I appreciate your time. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you very much, Allison. Are there questions for Allison right now at this point? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So when you said you put a house on the property, but they can't own the property, eventually down the road, could they end up buying that piece of land from you or not?
No.
Okay.
What we would do is keep it in the land trust, and it would have to, if they did want to sell and move into another home, they could sell the home, but they would have to sell to another low to median income household. That way the property stays affordable for up to 99 years.
Oh,
So
okay.
So we try and keep that property affordable, so if people are moving out and moving on, it's still an affordable property in Murray.
Okay.
Has NeighborWorks bought in any land yet or transferred it to a land trust? Or is it in conversation?
We are developing the land trust. We hired some consultants and we're training on it. We know quite a bit. We've kind of pretty much finished our training. We do have some properties that we already own that we're considering. Like we own some property just in the end of Tripp Lane here in Murray. And we're developing that into 13 lots. And we're considering, we don't know yet for sure, but we're considering maybe putting a couple of those lots into the community land trust so they will stay affordable for the years that they're here.
And do you know when you're going to start that project? Because that's in my district, and we're, the neighbors are just kind of wondering.
I know. Well,
with everything else.
Well, there was. I don't know if you know the history of that project. I'll kind of briefly go through that. We purchased that property from a family. It was agricultural. And we had it rezoned to residential. And there was some talk about the road originally was meant to go through and connect with, and I forget the name of the other road. I didn't think I'd ever forget all the details here. It was originally planned to connect to the street just to the south of the property. And there was a lot of citizen comments, and they weren't happy. It was a very black and white issue. There was a lot of people very passionate about that road going through, and a lot of people very passionate about it not going through. So we just had to sit back and let that whole issue kind of resolve itself, and that took about a year or so. And that issue finally did resolve itself, and the road is not going through. So we had to go back and redo our plans, which we've now got our original plan, our draft, I guess, and we've approved that. Now it's back at the architects, and they're completing the final plan. And that should take, I would imagine, more than another couple of weeks or so to get that final plan. And then we'll present that to the city to get that approved. Once that's approved, then we'll start digging. So we're hoping this spring we're going to be out there digging away. So that's our hope and our plan.
So what has Murray's contribution been to NeighborWorks?
As far as we have
Monetary.
received TIF funding. Tax increment funding is what we receive from Murray City.
Okay.
And they've given us some funding quite some time ago. And what we do is we loan that out to someone for a first mortgage or a home improvement loan. And as they make payments to us, that money comes back into us and it's restricted. And we loan that out again to somebody else. So that as that money comes back, then we turn around and loan it out to someone else in Murray. And then as it comes back with monthly payments, we loan it out to someone else. So we have the same money we've been just rolling around for years. And right now we have quite a bit, of funds available for down payment assistance, home improvement loans. So yeah, we get tax increment financing from Murray.
Great, thank you. Also, I see that our contract expired in May 21st.
It did.
I'm surprised we've
been
let
working,
that happen.
Well, I don't want to point fingers. We reached out and we've been working on it with someone who's no longer with the city. And it just didn't get taken care of, but.
Is there, since we are talking about the contract, is there anything new or anything that
There's a couple of things that, when we met with the mayor and Doug, they said, why don't you take the contract we have, let us know what changes you want. And a couple of things we asked for was maybe a little bit of an increase to our down payment assistance funding, because right now $20,000 is a lot of money, but is it really enough to really help someone get into a home? So we've asked for a little bit of an increase to that, from 20 to 25 to 30 to 35. We also mentioned the possibility of mortgage payment assistance, and we've received some funding from Salt Lake City to help the Salt Lake City residents who are in their home and having a hard time making their house payments because of COVID. And so we've received some funding that we can help these Salt Lake City residents, and we've received some funding from West Valley. So we thought maybe we would see if Murray City would like to contribute and let us use some of that funding for mortgage payment assistance for their residents who are struggling making their house payments. Because we do get applications all the time from various cities all over the valley, and we have to tell them, I'm sorry, we don't have any funding for that area. So we do see some residents of Murray reaching out to us and asking for mortgage assistance, and we have to unfortunately turn them away, but we do refer them to other organizations that may have funding. There's an organization that's had a little bit of county funding, but their funding's running low right now. So that's one thing we kind of would like to ask for too, is little mortgage payment assistance money to help these people.
Perfect. I would like to kind of see that a little bit more formalized, at least to the RDA chair and myself, to kind of look at that.
Yeah, let us know, what you need and what you're requesting. So
Great.
Anyway.
I can send you a sample contract of the contract we have with Salt Lake City and West Valley, so you can kind of see what the guidelines are for them to help you build something for it.
That'd be great. I mean, I think your organization is wonderful, and I think you've really helped a lot of Murray citizens. So, I mean, I really appreciate what you've done and your organization, and so
appreciate it.
How does the council? What do you think?
I just want to jump in. I mean, whenever NeighborWorks is here, I disclose that I'm a recipient of a down payment assistance loan. My family is that low to mid income and could not have purchased our house without it. So legal disclosure, and thank you. But with that, I think with all of us are so aware of the housing crisis and affordability that we're just so lucky your organization is here to help us with this work, because you are serving such a crucial need. And so I think in all the work we're doing on other things trying to improve housing accessibility, that is such an easy way we can make such a massive difference. So we're just glad you're here, and
thank you.
I'm in favor of whatever we can do to support their work.
All right.
Great. Thank you.
Gary?
Yeah, that sounds great.
I worked in finance. I've only been with NeighborWorks just over 3 years, and I worked in auto finance for many years, and then commercial lending. And it's kind of nice to take everything I learned there and to use it for good. That's what I feel like. I'm not in the corporate world where we're looking at the bottom line. What's our return on this investment? We don't care. Our return on the investment, we do care. Our return is a happy family living in a home for their first time. Yeah. That's our return.
The last thing I wanted to mention is I'm familiar with NeighborWorks. I've been a part of their program in Salt Lake when I lived out there. And I feel like in Salt Lake, they promote and elevate NeighborWorks higher than we do in Murray. And I would like to see that moving forward, that we tell citizens a little bit more about it. I mean, I have residents in my neighborhood who didn't know about the loan program.
Yeah.
And
hard.
now, they're interested in looking at that because we live in a lot of older homes, and we've even looked into it. So I think we as a city, if we do move forward with NeighborWorks, that we either put some funding into the marketing or put something
That would be great.
that would match with NeighborWorks to be able to promote the programs
I'd love
that
to
you
get
do.
it in your newsletter.
Yeah. Oh,
And,
thanks.
get a quote from the mayor that we had a quote from the prior mayor that we put on our flyer because, people get flyers all the time about loans and lending and you just don't know who to trust. So we got a quote from the former mayor that we could put on it to give it credibility to let people know that we are working with the city. We're in
Right.
partnership with the city.
Well,
So
I
that'd be
think-
great if we could get another quote from our new mayor to put on our marketing materials as
Get
well.
on it, Brett.
So
But I think also if we just had you at every event that we hosted and made sure that you always have, that NeighborWorks has a space
yeah. Okay.
in terms of being able to promote
Prior
NeighborWorks
to
for
COVID,
citizens.
we went out to some of your theater in the park movies and we'd set up a table and we'd hand out flyers and answer questions. We did a lot of that pre-COVID, but we kind of got away from that. And I'm hoping this summer that COVID allows us to get out and do more of that.
Pam, what are your thoughts?
Go for it.
Thank you.
I'm just
Thank you
in
so
awe.
much. Oh,
And I have a couple of people that I'm sending your way.
you give them my number.
Yeah.
And we are in the Townsend home, which is right in the middle of that. That's where we're located, right in the middle of the new
And I
is it
didn't real-
CBO area. Is that what it was called? And that home is an awesome home. If you haven't been in it, you should just come go tour through it while it's still there, because Arthur Townsend built that home, and he owned the first Murray Mercantile in Murray, and later became the mayor of Murray as well. And it's been there. It was built in 1905. It's got some really great woodwork and stained glass windows, and some light fixtures are just amazing. My father,
I went over there on a Friday and I didn't realize you were closed.
Oh, we're
So I was
closed.
like, oh, well, I'll come
Closed on
back
Fridays.
Monday.
We're here Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
But my father, who still lives on 4800 South, he knew the people that lived there since then. I can't remember their name, but he was telling me, oh, that so-and-so lived there, and she married so-and-so, and they lived there for so many years. And so he remembers the people that were there as well. So
I'm excited.
yeah, it's a great home. It's a great place. Come look at it. Come tour. I'm glad to show you the place. It's awesome. Great big tall ceilings and a big cloth bathtub. Not that I ever used that at work. So it's a great
Okay,
place.
I
Thank you very
think-
much. Any other questions?
Diana, let's take a tour of it.
Thank you.
Let's
That
take a
would
tour.
be
That'd
that would be awesome.
Absolutely. I would love that. Yes.
Okay, Jennifer.
Yes.
You
Absolutely. I would love that.
great. Thank you. I
welcome.
hope you got the message that we really support your program, and get us more information, and
Will do. Thank you very
Doug
much.
will also help follow through with that. So thanks, Allison.
Yeah, so we got what we need. What we'll do is we'll work on drafting an agreement, a resolution and an agreement. We'll work with the attorney's office. We'll bring that to you at your next meeting.
Great. Thanks, Doug. Okay. Now we are going to discuss hiring a market research and data analytics group to conduct a public opinion survey for the area between State Street and Poplar Street and 4800 South to Fifth Avenue within the Central Business District Urban Renewal Area. What a great idea, don't you think? I mean,
Yeah.
just really.
From these citizens.
Yeah. Yep. So, Doug.
All right, I know you're at the end of your meeting, but I do want to invite Kyrene Gibb, who is with Y2 Analytics, forward. Kyrene, I hate to do this to you, but if you can condense it as much as possible. But there is a proposal in your packet, as we have heard and as we have struggled, the city has struggled with, getting public input seems to be one of the big things that we hear about. We heard it during the elections. We heard it during the proposals to develop the historic downtown area. We know what people think on Facebook. We know what people think when they attend public meetings. But we felt, and as we discussed this again with the chair and the vice chair, we felt like it would be helpful to get a scientific survey, something that is representative of all of the city. Doesn't necessarily reflect the interest of special interest groups or particular individuals. Not that those aren't important to have that kind of information, but we felt like it would be important to do a public opinion survey that does represent all of the citizens of Murray as far as the central business district and what should go there and what people would want and what they don't want, and so I reached out and contacted Kyrene. They're a professional company. She can talk about their company briefly. And then she can go over the proposal that they have presented. There's a couple of options in there. Would like to know what your ideas and thoughts are on that. There are funds. I've talked to Brenda, and as you saw earlier, there is sufficient funds for us to do a survey in the RDA. So with that, I'm just going to introduce Kyrene.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Doug, for that quick introduction. I'll just give a brief introduction to Y2. We are a survey research and data analysis firm based locally in Salt Lake City. I actually grew up in South Salt Lake and had family in Murray growing up as well, so definitely know the area pretty well. We pride ourselves on providing representative public opinion research to municipalities and organizations throughout the state of Utah and across the country. Our public arm is focused in Utah right now, so we work with school districts, cities, nonprofit organizations, et cetera, to gather a representative, statistically valid view of what the audience of interest, and in this case, Murray City residents as a whole, think about an issue. And we have done surveys like this for bond elections. We've done surveys like this for general citizen satisfaction work in other cities. We do regular surveys of residents to get a sense of what areas of the city stand in most in need of improvement and what things the city is doing best. So this is an opportunity, I think, for the city of Murray to get a broad spanning look at public opinion rather than just hearing from those same voices that come to public meetings or are active on Facebook. Doug did a pretty good job of setting that up. So I'm happy to go over any specific questions about our process. I want to make sure that I'm being considerate of your time as well, but we do have a few options for approach in the proposal. In order to be representative and have a reasonable margin of error for a city of Murray's size, we would recommend gathering a sample of 400 randomly selected residents at minimum. That would be 400 randomly selected households. We generally rely on address-based sampling so that we can get a good broad distribution and we're capturing the whole population. We could, if it were of interest to the city, expand that sample size to 600 so that there's a little bit more room for subgroup analysis. And beyond that, if the city is interested in potential future survey research engagements, we could recruit a panel of residents, in which case we would frankly contact significantly more residents than we need for this particular survey, so that when there are future needs, when there are future research questions that the city has, we can go back to a pool that is statistically representative, that have opted in to participate in survey research, and we're able to gather that data for subsequent endeavors at a significantly reduced cost. So that's sort of the quick overview. What questions can I answer?
Maybe this is a question for Doug, but why would we do an RFP for the survey company, or is Y2 the only company that we would be using?
So we are not required to have to do an RFP. Our procurement ordinance allows us to hire a professional service organization like Y2 Analytics, as long as we stay under $50,000, which this is significantly less than $50,000. So I'm recommending, just having talked to and got bids in the past year from public opinion companies. Y2 Analytics was very responsive. I've gotten great recommendations from them. So unless you want to go out and get additional bids and quotes, I'm just recommending that we work directly with Y2 Analytics, and that is allowed under our procurement ordinance.
Okay, thank you. And so that clarifies that question. Thank you. Looking at the packet, I was interested and curious to know the selective participation of just voters, and if there was room to go out, have boots on the ground where we can recruit and meet people where they're at, versus a selection poll that could be still kind of biased in my opinion, but engaging voters a little bit more, boots on the ground, whether it be at the grocery store or in service where they worship, any of those locations, and if that's something that you guys also can do or look at.
So that would be an option. That would have pretty significant cost implications attached to it because we're paying for live interview time and one-on-one administrative training. We would also want to make sure that our trained interviewees are contacting people in sort of that intercept format at a random interval so that we're not getting sort of young interviewers only reaching out to young, friendly-looking participants. We want to make sure that whatever sampling frame we use, whatever sampling mode we use to gather survey responses, that we're getting a random selection, because that is the only way that we can really assure that our responses at the end of the day are representative of the city as a whole. It really hinges on that statistically valid random selection process. The question of whether we rely on a registered voter sample or a broader address-based sample is also one of cost. So certainly we could go to a USPS database. We do this in a lot of cities that we work with that are concerned about disparate representation among the voter population compared to the city as a whole. We would purchase an address-based sample list of households in the city of Murray, and that would allow us to reach out not just to registered voters, but to residents more broadly, again, just randomly selecting those households. And then inviting residents to participate in the survey online, or if they are not comfortable participating online, there's an option for residents to call into a helpline, and then we can arrange for a telephone interview if that's what they prefer. We find that most residents especially Salt Lake County, but throughout the state of Utah, we have much higher success rates for online surveys than we do for telephone surveys, because people can sort of take them at their leisure rather than being on the phone for a specified amount of time.
Yeah.
So I have a question. When you say online survey, you also have to realize there's some people that don't even are online.
Sure.
And so is there an option that we could still do a mail survey also, or is that overlapping? Because when I was reading your packet, I had a few questions about that. It says, could there be an overlapping and get a survey in the mail and on the email and on the phone? So you're getting three things from one citizen that could put a different light on your survey. So I'm just wondering, will there just be one, or will there be multiples, options there? So
yeah,
go ahead.
Our approach is generally to have one survey through which residents can access through various modes. So we could send an email invitation to the survey. If we don't get a response via email, we could send a printed invitation to that same survey. And that printed invitation directs them to participate online or call the helpline if they would rather not participate online.
Perfect.
Frankly,
Perfect.
sending out a mailed sort of printed survey and asking people to return that, our response rates are quite low and the cost is significantly higher. So we try to avoid that.
Okay. And then page 5 of your 16-page report, it says that your panels are statistically representative groups of citizens who agree ahead of time to take multiple surveys over the course of a year. We start with a panel recruitment study, and then subsequent studies are fielded among this group. Will we know who's on that panel, or do you know who's how do you form this panel?
Yeah, so the panel is recruited through random selection. So we reach out to randomly selected households.
Okay.
Invite them to take the survey.
Okay.
And then at the end of the survey, we would ask a question as to whether they would be interested in engaging in future survey research.
Okay, got it.
That way we have their contact information.
Okay, got it. Okay.
That was my question, how you choose the panels.
Yeah.
Yep, all random selection. We want to make sure that we are not biasing the composition of our sample or our panel in any way. At the end of our data collection process, we do what is called post-stratification weighting to ensure that our sample is statistically balanced and representative across census estimate demographics for the city. So if we find that, we have some responses from residents in Council District 2, for example, but not as many as would represent the population, we do a little bit of statistical manipulation there just to make sure that we are accurately portraying all of the sectors of the city across demographic and geographic considerations.
Okay. And then I have one more. I have several questions because I read your report. And I like the very, very end part where you had people talk about your survey. And the one that caught my interest was Tim Tingy.
Oh, yeah.
Who used to be here.
Right.
And also the next one was, where's Cameron Deal.
Yep.
So those two right there shows to me that you're a perfect fit. For me, I don't know about the rest, but for me, you're a perfect fit.
Glad to hear it.
So anyways, on page 7 of your 16-page report, it says projects can be delayed if clients approve requires public hearings or extensive back and forth on questionnaire development. But our staff is flexible and can accommodate whatever makes sense for staff, elected officials, and any other key decision makers, including accelerating report timelines when needed. So do we as a city council or your people bring the questions to a panel, or do we throw the questions to you, or how does that look?
Yeah, so we, as the survey research industry experts, will take the lead on survey design, sort of developing what those questions look like, ensuring they adhere to industry best practices, and accomplish your research goals.
Okay.
What we need from the city is we're never going to field a survey to your residents without your approval. So we will require sign off before getting the green light and going out and collecting data, whether that is a green light that you've delegated to Doug or another city staff member, or if that's something that you would have us, come and present the survey instrument, make sure that you're comfortable individually with those questions. That's sort of the process, though. We just want to make sure that everyone is comfortable and on the same page before that survey goes out to residents.
Thank you.
Okay, now, do you have a length of time that this would perhaps take?
Yeah, so the average project timeline takes about 8 weeks. We're looking at about a week to 2 weeks of questionnaire design and iteration on the front end, about 2 weeks of the survey being in the field where we're actively collecting interviews, and then about 2 weeks on the back end for reporting. I say that a typical project timeline takes about 8 weeks because somewhere in there we run a few days over. Generally speaking, maybe we'll be very efficient and we'll get everything done in 6 weeks, but that's sort of the typical range is a 6 to 8 week timeline.
And the cost will be about $18,500 in that kind
Correct,
of...
yep.
Okay.
Is Doug a question?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
This is a question probably for Doug. So looking at the addresses that we're looking at surveying specifically, the CBD is larger than that, right? The Central Business District, or is that does that encompass the whole thing?
Well, we would survey the entire city, not just within the CBD area.
Sorry, I meant like about it, like specifically. Do we targeting specifically that one area, or is there value in asking about the larger downtown area as far as their thoughts?
Well, I think that that's something I would turn back to you. I think that as we talked about it, we were more specifically focused on the properties that the city owns, Block 1. You know, what do people want to see in that area? If you would like to expand that area, I don't think that's a concern for Y2 Analytics. If you would like to expand that to be a larger area going on the east side of State Street, for example, and going further north and south, I think we'd like to hear that. I think what we'll want to do is give that direction to Y2 Analytics, assuming that there are no objections that we do this. And then, you know, we'll give them the parameters that would meet your needs. I do want to point out that one of the options on there is to use the panel collection method, and then we can do future surveys. So
That's kind of was wondering what.
right. So if you feel like you don't get the answers originally, and you want to survey on a bigger area or different subjects, I don't know what subjects you might want to gather information on in the future. That option is also still available at a reduced cost.
So that's a question I had as I was looking at this. So to have panel recruitment, it's cheaper than doing the 600 with no panel. Is that because there is a requirement to do future panel, or
It's the assumption that
it's
there
the
will be
assumption
future
we will,
panel
but there's not
research.
necessarily a requirement?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we want to incentivize that. We want to make survey research and data collection as affordable and accessible as possible. So there is some incentive for both parties there. Yep.
I think this is something we've needed to do for a long time, so I think it's a great idea. Our concern, and what we were considering, was the RDA area, since we are the RDA. So expanding it sounds like that would certainly be a possibility, but that's not something that this body is going to deal with. But so I guess we need to know, shall we go forward on this? Are you?
I just have a quick question, Doug. Could we bring this into the survey? Or is that like one thing and this is another thing? But could we bring this into the survey or not?
Well, I'm going to defer to Kyrene as to what the questions are, because I think it's really important that we ask the correct questions in the right way to get the answers that we want. We can. I'm probably thinking that you may want to approve that survey before it goes out, so we could bring that back to you at your next meeting and with the questions, and even share it with you between now and the next meeting, just to get your ideas. But I think we need to agree on what do you want to know. You need, and the questions need to bring that out. Whether it be, do you like Bill and Susan's plan or not? I don't know how you ask that question to get the right answer without showing pictures and diagrams like they show today. So it may be more complicated than it appears on the surface.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I mean, I want to move forward, and I think there is a lot of value in doing this. I would like to kind of maybe just reassess exactly what we want from Y2 Analytics, and maybe and then bring it back to the council. I think I would like to see more personal interaction. I think there's some value in that, especially since we did have such a big turnout at the senior center. I think there's something to be said, and also looking at the different demographics. The median age in Murray is in our late 30s, so that looks different than being at the senior center. And how do we reach those residents when you have kids at home? So maybe looking at that a little bit more in detail, and then coming back and saying, yes, this is what we want. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I think that's good, and I think we need to certainly consider that. I think what the mayor's office needs to know, and Y2, is if we want to go with them and continue, and then we can tweak it. Right. So I'm
I'm fine with either way. whether it's you guys or somebody else, but maybe looking into those details a little bit more.
What I will say is it sounds like some of what you're describing is more open house focused, sort of public interaction and public outreach rather than survey research.
No, not necessarily open house. More that you are there and you have an iPad, whatever, where residents can fill out a form, whether it be at a grocery store or at a place of worship. Kind of more boots on the ground, something that families would be going to anyways versus an open house that we just have here or anywhere else.
I wonder if the city could meet that need by, if we're doing a survey, we're probably putting it in the newsletter, we're probably putting it on the website and things like that, but of encouraging people to take it at the library if they don't have access to that kind of thing. And I wonder if that's...
I will say with our survey invitations, because we're sending either a postcard or an email or both, people can take the survey at anywhere on any device, whether that's a phone or a computer or or calling in to our helpline.
Right.
It is sort of location agnostic. In terms of what I think you're looking for as intercept interviews, that's something that we would need to scope out in addition to what's in this proposal.
Okay. And that's fine. I would just like to see the cost comparison to that because like I said, I think there is value and I think the library is great, but I think it's just meeting people where they're at, where they go to every day and they intersect. Not everybody uses the library.
Right.
Or not everybody goes to the senior center.
The biggest consideration that I'll raise there is that might put us above that 50K mark just because live interviewer time on the ground, on location, with devices they can use to administer a survey is going to be substantially more expensive.
And we also have to realize that several people that don't live in Murray go to these supermarkets and they go to their homes.
Right, and there's ways, and
so we have to be careful where we're surveying on the boot.
And I'm not asking for a blind survey. I'm not asking for that at all. There is ways, and I've seen it, and I've been a part of those where you can verify addresses.
Absolutely.
So I'm not asking for a blind survey. I mean, we could we could send
the industry standard best practice for representative survey research. Address-based sampling is going to be the best way to capture the whole population.
Right.
There are certainly ways to supplement that if there are concerns about some groups or if we find that we're really falling short among a certain demographic. But our experience in Utah and especially in Salt Lake County working with other municipalities, we have an ongoing contract with Taylorsville and Salt Lake City. We've done work in South Salt Lake and Mill Creek. We work with Draper and South Jordan. I'm very confident that we can get a representative look at Murray's population through address-based sampling.
Okay.
We need to continue on.
Go ahead. I that's just kind of where I'm at. I feel like we're not, we want people to respond and we can send a link. We could do that ourselves too. And so I want to make sure we're looking at it holistically for families as well.
Sure.
Okay, so I think the message is, yes, we want to do it. We want to have the opportunity to tweak it and be a part of the process.
Of course.
Okay?
Yep.
Is that helpful, Doug?
Yeah, I'll work then with Irene and we'll be back.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. We are at number 7, discuss scheduling an RDA training workshop. And as we've said in the past, RDA is not an easy concept. And I think it's really important since we have new council members and some of, in a lot of the last 2 years since you guys have been here, we have had COVID, and so it's been difficult for us to meet. But anyway, I thought it was important that we have a training workshop, and I think that our attorney is willing to do that for us, right? Since that's your specialty, you could do it in your sleep. So can we just set up schedule a date, or actually, do you want to do it now, or should we just have Jennifer contact us and work that? Yeah. Okay. So is that good for everybody? And all right. Okay.
Can I real quick just ask how long you want this training to be?
All right, GL, what do you think?
It's going to take about 6 days.
Perfect. Actually, 8 years for me and counting.
I think 2 hours at a minimum.
2 hours? At a minimum. Mayor?
I just know how important this issue is, and I was on it for 10 years, and I still have a lot to learn.
I know, that's why I said me,
so
8 years.
I would I'd take a half a day. I would, but you guys decide.
No, I
agree. There's so much. And I will insert here, there's stuff that's also happening at the legislature that could affect some things. So keep us abreast to that, Jill. Yeah, no, I know.
All right, Jennifer, I'll trust you to work this out. You're a magician, so thank you so much. Okay. I can't believe it. 5:30, we're adjourned.
So committee of the whole is supposed to start at 5. Can we take a 10-minute break? Let's take a 10-minute break. We will start at 20 till. See you all back.